welcome back to this is month 5 of the channel since I started. Pretty crazy to think about, and I've come such a long way. And I think the community has been so great in helping, really helping and contributing. I think I've learned as much as I've contributed. So awesome. Thank you all very much. And I'm going to continue the series on the rogues. This is going to be the video on the Arcane Trickster. I'm going to review it, rate it in the details. I'll cover a few of the nuances of this subclass and some of the tricks with it. But I'm going to hold off on doing more DPR comparison calculations until I finish all of the rogue subclasses, and then I'll wrap up as part of that video when I rank all of the subclasses with DPR comparisons for all of them. At this point, I have DM'd about 11,000 hours of 5th edition D&D now for hundreds of players. And if you don't have enough D&D in your life, you can find all the links to everything in the description of the video, including the links to the materials that I present, or at least the data that I present in the Google Drive there. There's only one spreadsheet, just has a bunch of tabs, so you only need to worry about one spreadsheet. That's pretty much gives you everything you might be interested in looking at offline. My channel's still pretty small, but growing, so if you like this kind of content, I would really appreciate a like and subscribe, and a comment is even better. This is the table that I use to kind of help define the roles, right? The way I review and rate everything is relative to the role, and I rate everything across every role, so that you have an idea not only how good I think something is, but you get an idea of how good I think it is at each of the things, okay? So there's not just a singular rating for everything. When I rate the base classes, that's a descriptor of how good I think that thing is or can be at that role at that point, but only as the base class. And for everything else, spells, feats, subclass features, those are additive. So I rate those as it's adding this much functionality in that category for you. And then the idea is you would use the spreadsheet that is linked in the description to go in and say filter things down. So you don't have to like read every spell in the game. If you're trying to find something that can increase your skirmisher capability, just filter down to all the spells that are either that have a good rating in skirmisher or a good rating in like self buff or something like that. So you get an idea of what these roles mean. The last column here is a list of the classes, but that doesn't mean that those classes are the only ones who can do that role, and those classes have to do that role. Neither of those things are true. That's just the default stereotype that everybody assumes those classes, the kind of roles those classes are going to be in. And if you say you're going to play one of the, like a tank, people are going to assume that you're playing one of those roles, or sorry, playing one of those classes. And there is no magical party composition requirement. There is no required role for any party. None of these are required. The only thing that's really required is that you talk with the rest of the players before session 1, right? You guys discuss what everyone's doing, what role you're planning to play, and just make sure that you all understand how that's going to work together, right? You don't want a party of all ranged attackers with nothing else because you don't have any front line. If you don't have a plan for that, right? There are ways to plan that. Maybe you're all rangers and you're going to throw down a bunch of entangles and then they can never catch you and you just run around shooting them. Great. You just need to know that you have a plan and everybody's going to be able to perform the role that they want to perform. The roles are only important because that's the fantasy you're choosing for this character to play. Time for some details. All right, let me explain real fast. I do this by tier of play, just to try to categorize it and bucket it in some way. And I do think it's important to see the context of everything, at least for some people, right? Some of us really like seeing the context of what you're specifically currently talking about in the context of the whole thing, right? And some people don't like that. And some people find it overwhelming to have too much information on the screen. So I've tried to compromise in the middle by I only colorize the stuff I'm currently talking about, the level and tier I'm currently talking about, and everything else is grayed out. So you still see the whole context, but hopefully the colors allow you to focus on just the things I'm talking about. I do group the base class into tiers. I don't talk about it at every single tier because that would make that table way too long to see everything. Okay, I'd have to have 11 rows just to make that happen. So for the rogue base class, you see it's by tier, and that's tier of play. So tier 1 is levels 1 to 4, tier 2 5 to 10, tier 3 11 to 16, tier 4 17 to 20, right? And then the subclass, I am doing it by level so that you can see more detail on the features because there's fewer features to present, and therefore I can do more detail on those fewer features. And then so what you're seeing right now is I've highlighted level 3, which is what I'm going to talk about for the Arcane Trickster, and tier 1 for the base class Rogue. So really it's like, here's all the features you'd have by level 4. as this class. You would have all of these level 3 subclass features, and you'd have all of those levels 1 through 4 base class features. All right, so the Arcane Trickster is probably still my favorite rogue because I just love gishes. I love combining martial capability with some spell casting. So that is by far my preferred fantasy. Always has been. I don't play every character that way, but it is my favorite. I do love it. And because of that, Arcane Trickster is my favorite rogue subclass, but I don't think Arcane Trickster is necessarily the most powerful. I don't think it's the highest ranked necessarily. Some people definitely think it is. It really comes down to how much do you like spells, how creative are you with spells. Uh, and if you love spells and what you can do with spells, then this is your number one subclass, right? And if you don't like spells, then you shouldn't do this one. It kind of comes down to that. That's kind of the point of everything I do, right? Helping you understand what this thing brings so you can decide if you want to play it or not. Whether in regardless of, maybe you're agnostic about spells, right? But this time you want to play a non-spellcaster, or this character, you do want to play a spellcaster, right? This helps you zero in on that kind of stuff. The Arcane Trickster, their tagline is enhanced stealth with arcane spells. Simple and clean. And their first feature at level 3 is spellcasting. You are a 1/3 spellcaster, which means you have 1/3 the spellcasting progression of like a full caster. So a full caster gains spell progression every single level. You gain spell progression every third level. That means you're going to have 1/3 the progression of slots, not necessarily 1/3 the spell slots, right? If you're talking about raw number of spell slots, you actually come out a bit ahead because spell slot count is front loaded, right? You can see that in like any full caster spellcasting table where they have like 4 by the end of their spellcasting progression, they have 4 first level spell slots, they have 4 second level spell slots, then they'll have 3/3, 3/4, 3/5, 2/6, 2/7, 1/8, 1/9, I think is something like that. So the number of spell slots per level, you have, what is it, 5 spell slots as a full caster by level 3? That's 5. So 3 first and 2 second level spell slots. But in your last 2 levels as a spellcaster, you only gain a single spell slot, I think. Maybe 2 spell slots, 1 per level in each of the last 2 levels. And in some of the levels in tier 4 and even late tier 3 as a full spellcaster, you don't even get a spell slot at some of the levels at all. So the spellcasting progression is front loaded. So you actually do pretty well in regard to number of spell slots. But spell slot level is really linear. Okay, so you're going to end up at 1/3 the max spell slot level of full casters. Now they kind of rounds you up. They give you a little bit of a benefit there. So you actually end up at level 19 with a 4th level spell slot instead of ending at 3rd level spell slots, which would really be 1/3 of 9th level spell slot capability. And that's just because you also cap out at 9th level, right? A full caster gets access to a higher level of spell slots every other level, at every odd level, except 19, right? They get access to first level spells at level 1, second level spells at level 3, third level spells at level 5, fourth level spells at level 7, and so on and so forth until level 17 when they gain their 9th level spell slots. But they don't get 10th level spell slots at level 19. So their spellcasting progression really slows down after 19. But yeah, you do pretty well as a 1/3 caster, and you're still the full base martial that you are. So it's a pretty good combo. They recommend Mage Hand. Well, you get Mage Hand for free. They recommend Mind Sliver and Minor Illusion. Minor Illusion is great for a rogue to have, but Mind Sliver is not good. It will break your stealth and will not allow you to activate your sneak attack, right? And unless you really, really, really need to debuff somebody's spell save, or sorry, save against one of your allies' spells, then Mind Sliver is terrible for you, right? And if that's the only thing you're accomplishing with it, there are circumstances where you're just in a bad place, and that's just the thing that needs to be done. Hopefully, the support person, because that's really a support spell, Mind Sliver, because the main thing it's doing is debuffing somebody to help your ally land their spell. Hopefully, the support person in the party has Mind Sliver, and they can help with that because you are a damage dealer. That's what the rogue's main function is. Like in combat, you're dealing damage. So giving up your sneak attack to cause a debuff on an enemy against their next save is a bad trade-off in general. That's not to say that there's like that one perfect scenario where this was just the perfect thing to do and it saved the day. That will definitely happen. It's just not going to be most of the time. Okay. And you only get 2 cantrips beside Mage Hand, so I would not choose one that's most of the time not going to be good for you. What you'd want to do is, and frankly, I would avoid all attack cantrips. Probably get a blade cantrip though, because you're going to want a good intelligence score, and having using like a booming blade, green flame blade, or true strike is going to increase your damage and give you some damage type versatility that you can add to your build. It's going to scale at levels 5, 11, and 17, where the rogue really needs more damage scaling to keep up. And some minor control effects or area damage effects, or like, Green Flame Blade hits 2 creatures, right? Those are the only attack cantrips I would really consider as a Arcane Trickster. There are some other cantrips and other spells I consider, but I'm going to come back to that, right? Just hold on to that for a sec. All right, I got to go off camera to show all this, but this is the information I put up during the Rogue 3 tactics video, or 3 things you should be thinking about. I can't remember what I called it. I can link it in as a card here. You can see, and the reason it's relevant is you can see that casting a spell with a verbal component breaks your stealth, which means casting other spells do not automatically break your stealth. If casting that spell causes you to make an attack roll, or it causes you to make a sound louder than a whisper, then it breaks your stealth. But otherwise, casting spells does not break your stealth, right? And as a reminder, the conditions to take the hide action are different than the conditions to maintain the hidden state. And the lower left box is the conditions you need to satisfy to take the hide action. Once you succeed, the box in the lower right are the conditions you need to maintain your hidden state. So line of sight is a condition you have to satisfy in order to activate the hidden action and then take it. But once you succeed, line of sight is no longer a factor at all. Those are the only 4 conditions that break your stealth. All right, I'll link the video on stealth and the rogue tactics video for that in more detail, but I'm not going to say any more on that. I just wanted to bring that up in context for spellcasting now. All right, we're back over here, and this is the filtered list of every spell the Arcane Trickster has access to that does not have a verbal component, okay? So you could cast all of these without breaking your stealth. However, if it makes an attack roll, right, then you break your stealth. So Booming Blade will break your stealth. Green Flame Blade will break your stealth. True Strike will break your stealth because those will make attack rolls. Thunderclap, interestingly enough, the spellcasting will not break your stealth because it has no verbal component, but the spell's thunderous sound can be heard up to 100 feet away. That definitely qualifies as making a sound louder than a whisper. So Thunderclap would break your stealth. The rest of these will not break your stealth. Okay. Control Flames and Code Thoughts, Friends. And if you have Magical Ambusher at level 9, you can cause them to have disadvantage on that. So you can, from stealth, cast Friends. And if they succeed, first of all, they're going to have disadvantage. And if they succeed, you didn't break your stealth. So just cast it again. Just keep casting it. They may know that something's going on, but they don't know who's doing it, and they can't find you. Now, maybe they start making taking search actions to try to spot you because they know something's going on, but they don't know where to look or what they're looking for. Message does not have a verbal component, so you can cast it while you're on a stealth mission, and it won't break your stealth. Now, you do have to verbalize the message, but I think only the target can hear you. Yeah, only the target can hear you, and they can respond, and only you can hear the target. So you can fully cast this, say whatever you want, as long as it meets the limitation, which I think is, isn't there a limit on the number of words in the message? No limit on the words in the message. All right, so you can have whole conversations back and forth with message without breaking your stealth ever. Minor illusion, great. If there's a guard patrol walking by and they're going to spot you and you have no other place to hide because you're going to be in plain view, and they're going to start. And if they're on patrol and you're not in combat, then they're probably the DM should rule them as they are taking the search action every round, and they will probably find you. The DM may actually rule that they automatically find you, which out of combat would be fine. But you create an illusion of a chest or a rock or a whatever, and then you crouch inside of it. And now they can't see you. You can't see them, but you could hear them, and they're just going to walk by talking. And then once you can hear that they're no longer within range, you walk out of it, move out of the minor illusion, and continue about your way. And if you need to, you can recast it because recasting it, if they stay there longer than a minute, does not break your stealth. You'll still be stealth. The illusion will still be going, and you can create a new illusion that looks just like the old illusion and keep that going once a minute for as long as you need to until the guards leave. You can mold earth. You can dig holes and tunnels while being stealth, shape water. You can create ice, 5-foot ice blocks if you need to. Some of the higher level spells absorb elements. You probably shouldn't, probably won't need to cast that unless you're in combat. Catapult is an interesting one. You could use catapult, deal damage. If you have magical ambusher because you're level 9, they'll have disadvantage on that save, and you will never break stealth. You will be stealthed and hidden the whole time. And you can just keep doing it. Now, they might start taking search actions to find you, and maybe they eventually find you, but for at least some period of time, or if your stealth modifier plus reliable talent is high enough that they can never find you no matter how high they roll, great. You can kill them with catapult given enough time and enough spell slots, right? And some people might be thinking, oh, well, eventually they'll roll a nat 20 and spot you. No. A natural 1 and a natural 20 have no effect on ability checks and saving throws. Nothing. Those are not automatic successes nor automatic failures. Those only have an effect on attack rolls. So you could conceivably kill things with them never being able to find you. Ice Knife, that would break your stealth because it is an attack roll. Makes an attack roll. Now it says dexterity save, so it's kind of hidden. The first creature, you make a ranged attack roll against the first creature, and then everyone around it, including that creature, makes a save also. So it is an attack roll, which will break your stealth. You can cast Snare, set up a bunch of snares on a stealth mission. You can cast Air Bubble if you need to breathe someplace. There is a lot of options here. Some of them are very good as you get into the higher level spell levels for this. Kinetic Jaunt, you can cast that and increase your movement speed and not have any opportunity attacks. Now, if you're not in combat, that opportunity attacks shouldn't matter. Mind Spike. This is an interesting one. Everybody says it's not a very good spell, and it isn't, but it is kind of psionic by nature, right? It has only somatic component, which means you can, and it is an attack. It is not an attack roll. So you could cast this while stealth, never break your stealth, impose disadvantage if you have magical ambusher, and just kill somebody given enough time just by mind spiking them to death. Nether's Mischief. You can cast that while stealth. It won't break your stealth. It causes a 20-foot cube of control effects. Rhymes Binding Ice. You can knock something out of the sky because that reduces their speed to 0. If they don't have hover, they fall. And you can do it while stealth, potentially imposing disadvantage on the save and not break your hidden state. Catnap. You go unconscious. So if you use it on yourself, I think you're excluded. Counterspell, though, just somatic component. You could counterspell somebody's spell without ever breaking your stealth. And so there's some wizard, I don't know, he's in the middle of a fight with somebody else, and you're just there behind him, sneakily just like counter, causing disadvantage on those con saves. So probably a pretty high chance of countering everything he's got. Crazy. And then lastly, Hypnotic Pattern. You can drop that while stealth, causing disadvantage on the saving throw, never break your stealth, because it has no verbal component. Pretty sweet. If this were on a full caster, then that would be crazy good. On a 1/3 caster, you just don't have that many 3rd level spell slots. You don't get them till level 13. You get 2 at level 13 and a 3rd one at level 16. So it's like late game that you're pulling this off, which is also the time when a lot of creatures are going to be immune to Charmed or resistant to the Charm condition, which was really they have advantage on the save against Charmed. So it's a very good option, but not, S tier. Now, if you multi-class after level 7, so you got reliable talent to guarantee that you're stealthing, and then you multi-class to wizard, yeah, you could be an S tier controller using that combo. No, you don't want to wait till level 9 when you have magical ambusher. So level 9, Arcane Trickster Rogue, 11 levels of wizard. Heck, go for Illusionist Wizard to just double down on being really good at the illusions, which is what Hypnotic Pattern is, and you're an S tier controller, as long as they are not immune to the charm condition. I want to call out a couple of cantrips before moving on, and that is Prestidigitation. I've seen some other YouTubers say, oh, well, if you're on a stealth mission, then you can just put out flames with Prestidigitation, then they can't spot you. No. First of all, verbal component. This will break your stealth just by casting it. 2, range of 10 feet. So nearly every light source in the game has a bright light range of more than 10 feet. So to get in range, you would have to walk within the range of the bright light, which increases the chance you're going to get spotted, and break your stealth. I mean, like you just can't do it. You can't pull it off. You're breaking your stealth just by casting the spell, right? So this is not good at all for stealthing. It's terrible for a stealth mission if you're trying to like use this to put out lights so you can keep stealthing through darkness. However, Control Flames has none of those problems, right? 60-foot range and no verbal component. So you can cast this. It will not break your stealth, and you can do it from 60 feet away, which is further away than the vast majority of the bright light ranges of light sources. There are a couple of light source spells in the game that have a bright light range of 60 feet. So this is a great one for the Arcane Trickster and any rogue to get. I think I would still go Minor Illusion first. I think that is more versatile, more applicable in more situations while scouting than this is. And then I would get this one second. Now, this wouldn't be my second cantrip pick, right? You only get 2 cantrips, whether you're doing like Magic Initiate or you are, an Arcane Trickster. You got Mage Hand as a third one, but you can't swap that. So you get to pick 2. I would pick Minor Illusion. I like that suggestion that they gave. And I would pick some sort of Blade cantrip to enhance your damage capabilities in combat. Right? That's really good for rogues and basically built into your subclass right here. That was a lot, but spellcasting is your premier subclass feature, so it was a lot to cover, and all of the rest of the features you get are kind of minor in comparison because this is so powerful, and as it should be, right? I would not give features to the, at every level that are just as powerful as what the other subclasses get at the same levels because the Arcane Trickster is getting new spells, more spell slots every level, and so they should have the features that are built into the subclass besides spellcasting should be less powerful. There's your spellcasting table. You can see the progression. When you level up, you can swap a spell, but your spells are like spells known, not spells that you can prepare on a long rest. So you only get to swap them on a level up. Intelligence is your spellcasting ability score for your spells. You can only choose from the wizard spell list, and you can use an arcane focus for your spells. All right. And also at level 3, you got Mage Hand Legerdemain, which means you can essentially cast and use your Mage Hand as a bonus action, and you get to also use it to make sleight of hand checks. So this is and you can make it invisible. So there's some utility there. It's not very powerful. It's not going to, you're not going to use it in combat very much. Stealing, like sleight of hand, will let you steal something from another creature as a bonus action. That could be useful. I had one player in one scenario with a boss fight where they snatched his magic staff before he could pick it up because he was sitting at a table. They surprised him and snatched his staff, and that was his arcane focus, and it was a staff of defense. So that was like a lot of his power came from the spells that gave him. And so they crippled the boss in the fight by snatching that staff. Okay, so there are times when stealing something from a creature in combat is going to be awesome and S tier, but it's super rare. Like I said, in 11,000 hours of DMing 5th edition, that has happened exactly once. So not common. All right, so this is a very minor feature, as it should be, because you also got spellcasting at this level, right? Okay, so that makes sense. And you can see this is how I rank the rogue subclass in tier 1, and they get a lot of rankings. The Arcane Trickster gets a lot of ratings, I guess I should say, in a lot of categories because of the flexibility of the spells, right? So you can see it all the way across the board. Now, keep in mind, this is your potential to add those, and that potential, not guarantee, is because it depends on what spells you choose, and you only get to prepare so many spells, right? So you are 4th level right now. That means you have 4 spells prepared plus your cantrips. So you only have 4 spells. And you cannot reach these ratings in every one of these roles with only 4 spells. All right. So what I recommend is like Shield, probably False Life, probably Long Strider. Pick your other 1st level spell that's going to be important, like whether it's a control spell that you want to be using regularly, whether it's, whatever it is, one other 1st level spell. Maybe Absorb Elements. You probably don't need to absorb elements in tier 1, but in tier 2, you want to start having absorb elements. So by 5th level, you want to make sure you swap in absorb elements if you haven't already gotten it. So you just don't have the spell preparations to achieve all these, but picking the right spells, if you choose what I said, you're going to have B mobility from your spells and an A survivability from your spells, right? Because you're going to get false life plus shield, both boosting your HP and your AC, which are the two biggest weaknesses of the rogue. So you shore that up, and now you're a solid, character right at level 3. Moving into tier 2, you can see I've highlighted tier 2 for the base class and levels 7 and 9 for the subclass, because those are both the levels in tier 2. So level 7, you get more spellcasting. You're now getting second level spells, and with the options you have available to you there, this is kind of spread you can get of different things. Again, same thing that I said about tier 1 spellcasting applies here, which is you have the potential to achieve these in any one of these roles, but you can't achieve all of them because you just don't have enough spell preparations, nor do you have enough spell slots to be casting that many spells anyway. But some standouts here you have at level 2 are like Kinetic Jaunt, which is a bonus action to cast. It's a concentration spell, but once you cast it, you no longer have to spend any action economy nor sneak attack dice on like the Cunning Strike withdraw to get out of combat, right? You can just run in, attack, do whatever you want to do, and run back out. It increases your movement speed by 10 as well, and you don't provoke the opportunity attacks. So, if you cast that as your bonus action in round 1, you now benefit from it every other round of combat, and you can use your bonus action for other things. What might that be? Well, maybe you need a dash to get more speed in there. Maybe you want to hide, so you run in, run out, and between turns you're hiding every round, and you no longer need to worry about whether or not because you can't disengage and hide using your cutting action, right? You can only do one of those. Well, with Kinetic Jaunt, you don't have to worry about that. Now, on round 1, you can't do both because Kinetic Jaunt takes your bonus action on round 1, but after that, you don't have to worry about it. There's also Enhanceability, super flexible spell, awesome for both scout roll, face roll, knowledge things, because if you have some skill checks you need to pass, for an exploration encounter or a social encounter, you just give yourself advantage for 1 hour on every check related to that one ability score. You need to figure some things out and know some information. Enhanceability on intelligence, you now have advantage on every skill check you make with intelligence for the next hour. Plus, you have reliable talent because you're level 7 at least. Well, level 7, and you're crushing all of those knowledge checks and investigation checks. You need to go engage in a scouting mission, and there are lots of enemies who might spot you. Give yourself permanent advantage on dexterity checks. You now have permanent advantage on acrobatics checks while you're doing that. Stealth checks, sleight of hand checks, all the things you need to do to pick locks, disarm traps, hide. They'll never find you. You have an important social encounter coming up, and the party's not sure they're going to succeed, and it's too important to fail. All right, enhanceability on yourself. You now have advantage plus reliable talent on every charisma. Well, advantage on every charisma check and reliable talent on every skill check that you're proficient with. So you may not be proficient with all these skills, right? Because while you have the most proficiencies out of any class, you don't have all of them. But the Arcane Trickster also gets the spell at level 2, Borrowed Knowledge, which you can just pick a skill and now you're proficient, which for any other character is not very useful. You're just talking about adding a proficiency bonus to that one skill check, right? And if your ability score in that area is like a 12 or a 10, you're only talking about a +0 or a +1, and then your proficiency modifier on top of that, proficiency bonus on top of that, still not very good. On a rogue, that activates your reliable talent. So, I don't know. You need to negotiate a really tense and important treaty, and your usual face of the party isn't available, or you are the face of the party, you only have a 12 charisma, and you're not proficient with persuasion. Borrowed Knowledge. You now have proficiency with persuasion for 1 hour, triggers your reliable talents. You can't roll less than a 10 on the d20. Then also cast Enhance Ability, because Borrowed Knowledge is not concentration, and you now have advantage on that check. You have reliable talent plus proficiency on that check. Crazy combo. I don't know why more people don't use those things. So great stuff there. I think those are the biggest callouts I would mention for level 2. There's some good control spells at level 2. Probably the best control spell at level 1 that you want to get is Sleep. And then level 2, maybe Tasha's Mind Whip, and swap in Tasha's Hideous Laughter, because upcast to level 2, Tasha's Hideous Laughter is pretty good, but cast at level 1, Tasha's Hideous Laughter is not better than Sleep. And then at level 9, we get Magical Ambush from our subclass. Well, we get all these spells from our subclass too, but that's at level 7 from just your spellcasting progression. Magical Ambush, if you have the invisible condition when you cast a spell on a creature, it has disadvantage on saving throws it makes against the spell on the same turn. So if you are hidden and cast one of those spells that I listed that doesn't break your stealth, Hypnotic Pattern, which you don't get to level 13, but I don't know, Tasha's Mind Whip, Sleep, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, you can cast all of those while hidden using stealth, cause them to have disadvantage on the save, which you probably want because your intelligence may not be your highest ability score. It could be, but it may not be. And you have a good chance to land those, and they still don't spot you. And with Sleep, you can cast Sleep, do something else, I don't know, with your action that's not going to break your stealth, and then wait for it to put them to sleep. Now they're unconscious, and now if you hit them while unconscious, which you could still be invisible from the hidden state because you didn't break your stealth, if you run up and hit them from 5 feet away, you have advantage on the attack, and if it hits, you automatically crit them because they're unconscious, which is great for any character. But with a rogue, your sneak attack dice to get doubled by that crit as well, so you're guaranteeing a sneak attack crit for yourself. Now, Sleep takes 2 turns to make them unconscious. You get Hold Person at level 2. You could Hold Person on somebody, and I mean that's going to take your action to Hold Person, but then stealth up to them and just keep stabbing them. Your attack roll will break stealth, but it doesn't matter at that point. As long as they're under the effects of Hold Person and they don't make the save, you can keep stabbing them. Every single hit from 5 feet away is a crit, doubling your sneak attack dice. It's just crazy stuff you can do as an Arcane Trickster. Magical Ambush, I rate as an A level feature. That's good. It's easy for you to give it to yourself to cause disadvantage on their saves. Nobody needs to set you up. You don't need to get a feat to trigger it, like Fairy Trickster, which it gives them another save anyway. So, A-level feature. Your spellcasting from level 7, you get a bunch of A's for that too. That is completely dependent on what spells you choose. I would definitely look at Enhance Ability, Borrowed Knowledge, Kinetic Jaunt, maybe Rhymes Binding Ice. You can knock things out of the air. There's a few of them. It really depends on what your party needs you to do. If you've got a good controller in the party, like a full wizard, I would not worry as much about getting control spells. You want to get spells that are going to enhance your ability to deal damage and function in the ability check, skill check areas like Scout, Face, and the Knowledge guy. So this is a good tier for the Arcane Trickster. Very good. Moving on to tier 3, I've highlighted the tier 3 row for the base class, and I've highlighted level 13 for the subclass. You get access to 3rd level spells, which is a big deal. And you also get Versatile Trickster right at level 13. So both those happen at level 13 this time. That's the only time when you gain a new level of spells and a feature at the same time since level 3. All right, so Versatile Trickster, you gain the ability to distract targets with your Mage Hand. When you use the trip option of your Cunning Strike on a creature, you can also use that option on another creature within 5 feet of the Spectral Hand. This is niche, not very strong at all. This is kind of like, I would give this a D as a control feature. If Trip was your only option for Cunning Strike, I would probably rate this higher because that means you're going to be doing Trip a lot more often. And then your Mage Hand will be tripping more often. But I don't think I'd rank it up very much, right? I'd still say it's maybe a C because knocking something prone just isn't a super strong control effect. Like any marshal can do that with weapon mastery now. You can just knock things prone. And this is going to require your bonus action to get the Mage Hand into place. So it needs to be adjacent to creatures when you use this. So some of the time it's going to require your bonus action to pull this off. And again, you're just going to knock them prone. Now, that could be very, very useful depending on the initiative tracker or the initiative order, right? If you have a bunch of melee martial allies who go after you before the monster does, and then you knock them prone, then that creature's going to be prone, and all those melee martial allies are going to run up or already be adjacent and have advantage on all their attacks. They're going to love that. It's going to be great. If the monster you are going to trip goes right after you in initiative, then that's going to do almost nothing because it's just going to stand right up after your turn and have no effect. So in that case, I would definitely not use it because you're just wasting the sneak attack die of your Cunning Strike using a Cunning Strike that's going to have no impact. So it's not terrible. It's not like terrible or bad or useless. It's just not very strong and not useful in a lot of situations, right? A lot of the time, you're going to want to use one of your other Cunning Strike options that are better than this, just better than Trip. And that, Versatile Trickster does nothing with those Cunning Strike options. So I do wish they had, made this a little broader. you know, so that you can do a few more other things with your mage hand instead of just the one cunning strike option. I don't know. It is what it is. But more importantly, we get third level spells, which is a big deal. You get spells like haste and cacophonic shield, hypnotic pattern, dispel magic, counter spell. All of those are really important spells. Haste is awesome for you as a rogue to cast on yourself. It gives you the ability to give yourself that trick where you cast haste, then you use your hasted action to attack, and on subsequent rounds, you use your regular action to ready an action to trigger an attack if any creature does anything, right? And then you're guaranteeing yourself the ability to trigger a sneak attack, to trigger an attack as a reaction every single round. Whether or not you land your sneak attack depends on whether you hit and the other qualifiers, things like that. But at least you're automatically giving yourself to make the ability to make a reaction attack that only works after the first round of combat. And you only have 2 third level spell slots. So I am not giving this. You might be thinking like, why are you not giving this an A as a skirmisher? That's awesome. That's huge. You know, and even the numbers you've talked about, that's a lot of damage. And yes, it is. The 2 limiters are you only have 2 third level spell slots. You do not regain spell slots with any short rest. You don't have arcane recovery or anything like that. So you can at most do this in 2 combats per long rest. I do the DPR calculations on 3 combats. And of course, that's also assuming you don't lose concentration, which I'm not factoring into that. And also, haste doesn't help you on round 1. Round 1, you're using your action to cast haste. So at most, it helps you on rounds 2 and 3, and I do on average 3-round combats. So just you got to draw a line in the sand to do DPR calculations. So 3 combats, 3 rounds each. Casting haste on yourself is giving you that guaranteed reaction attack, which is an opportunity for a sneak attack. Guaranteed reaction attack on 4 out of 9 rounds of combat per day, which is 45%, which is still better than what you can achieve by getting like Sentinel and Zentarum Tactics. If you get both of those feats, you're coming in at about 1.3. Oh no, if you get one of those, you're coming in at about 1.3 sneak attack or reaction attack opportunities per round on average. If you get both of those, you're coming in at 1.6. So haste alone at this level is getting you close to what other rogues would achieve if they take both the Sentinel feat and the Zentarum Tactic feat, which actually costs you 3 feats to do. And you're doing that without spending any feats on it. You're just can't do it to level 13. Okay. Now you get your third level spell slot at level 16. So at level 16, you can do that in all 3 combats per day, which is going to give you that guaranteed reaction attack on 6 of 9 rounds of combat, which puts you in the same range as what other rogues would achieve if they had both Sentinel and Zentarum Tactics. It's actually slightly above. You'd be at like 66%. You'd have like you'd be giving yourself reaction attacks on 66% of the rounds of combat. They would only be achieving maybe in the realm of 60%. So you're slightly ahead of them without spending any feats. Again, you can only do this at high levels, right? So levels 1 to 12 or 3 to 12, if you don't get those feats, then you're going to be behind those other rogues. And if you have a DM who doesn't let you swap feats like I do, I allow you to swap feats 1 feat when you level up. That is not raw. That's not rules as written. That's my homebrew. So if your DM runs it as is, then that means you either don't get those feats and you're behind all the rogues until level 13, or you get those feats and now they become far less useful once you have haste. Or maybe you just don't use haste. Save your spell slots, which is all a great way to go also. But yeah, this is a huge, the feature, not very strong. The spell capability here, awesome. Lots of bees. Again, you can't do all of these. Depends on what spells you choose, but you can get a lot of bees. And what I can't represent here is the fact that, like I said with haste, your spell slots can progress. And so the value of this feature actually progresses in later levels. But at this level, at level 13, this is what your spell casting that you gain at level 13 is giving you. I hope that makes sense. Like at level 16, I would say that this being able to cast 3 third level spells is now an A as a skirmisher. I just can't represent that here. It's too hard. It's already too complex. And sorry, I meant to have this up on the screen while I was talking about the haste spell. This is what I was referring to. I actually had it up on my other monitor and I was looking at it while I was talking about the haste spell, which is why I didn't realize that I wasn't presenting it. I was still showing the tables. the rating tables. Anyway, this is what I was referring to. I did present this during the Rogue Tactics video, and so this was what I was referring to, which is on row 1, if you only achieve on average 1 sneak attack per round, you're actually going to feel subpar in relation to damage per round compared to other reasonably optimized, not super optimized, but like reasonably well built marshals. And if you can achieve 1.3 sneak attacks per round, meaning 30% of the time you're getting a reaction attack and landing that for a sneak attack, you're probably going to feel on par with the other marshals. And to do that, you need something that's going to give you a better chance of activating a reaction attack. And you can't rely on opportunity attacks, right? Because not very often are enemies going to run away from a rogue, right? Because you're squishy, they want to stand next to you and bash you and beat you to death. So you need something like Sentinel or Zentarum tactics, and those mean you also have to stand in melee. So that's the other benefit of using the haste spell. You do not have to stand in melee to get that reaction attack to trigger. You can trigger that with a ranged weapon, right? So you can be a ranged Arcane Trickster. On your turn at range, you shoot somebody with your hand crossbow or short bow because they both have Vex, and then you set yourself up by just readying an action to make another range attack against any monster when it does anything. Just any monster does anything, and that will trigger that on every monster's turn as long as any of them are doing anything. And you can pick which monster you're going to use your reaction on because you don't have to use it on the first time it triggers. And just pick your range attack against anything. So that is the other really big benefit of the haste spell. It gives you a reliable way to trigger a reaction ranged attack, which Sentinel and Zentarum tactics cannot do. So that's what I was talking about. At level 13, when you have 2 third-level spell slots, you're going to achieve like 1.45 sneak attacks per round would be your like maximum, because you can only cast it on 2 combats, and you only get the benefit of it on rounds 2 and 3. As far as reaction attacks go, right? There's other benefits of the spell. When you get your third level spell slot at level 16, you're now hitting like your maximum potential is 1.66 sneak attacks per round on average, because you're getting sneak attacks or reaction attacks on 66% of your rounds of combat per day. So you're actually coming out slightly ahead of somebody a rogue who gets both Sentinel and Zentarum tactics. So this is a great way to go, very strong. Moving on to tier 4, so now we are a 20th level rogue. We get all of the base class features from level 17 to 20. We get all of our subclass features at level 17 and 19. 17, the level 17 feature is from the actual base class feature Spell Thief. Then the level 19 features you get is because you progress and get 4th level spell slots as an Arcane Trickster. So I had to add that one in there as well. So let's talk about Spell Thief first, because it comes up first at level 17. So you gain the ability to magically steal the knowledge of how to cast a spell from another spellcaster. Immediately after a creature casts a spell that targets you or includes you in its area of effect, you can take a reaction to force that creature to make an intelligence saving throw. So you're targeting a great saving throw. The DC equals your spell save DC. On a failed save, you negate the spell's effect against you, not everyone, and you steal the knowledge of the spell as if it were steal knowledge of the spell if it is at least level 1 and of a level you can cast. It doesn't need to be a wizard spell. For the next 8 hours, you have the spell prepared. The creature can't cast it. The creature you stole it from can't cast it until those 8 hours have passed. And once you steal a spell with this feature, you can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest. So they tweaked this from 2014 to 2024 and made it a lot better, because it used to not have that clause right there. Once you steal, right? This was a single use prolonged rest, regardless of whether you succeeded, which made it, your whole capstone, subclass capstone, you try once, fail, and that's it. You got nothing. So this is a lot better. You can keep trying until you finally steal something, and you can't steal cantrips. You can counter. This is like a counter spell plus steal the spell from their prepared spell list, so that you now have it prepared and they no longer do. So you can counter anything, but once, and that's interesting. You can counter. Does that mean? I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you think it works this way, right? Because you can attempt to counter anything, but if it's a spell that doesn't qualify to steal, right? You steal the knowledge if it qualifies. And this says once you steal. So you can counter and keep countering, and as long as you don't actually steal the spell, you can keep effectively counterspelling things. But you're counterspelling by making them make an intelligence save instead of the actual counterspell, which makes them make a constitution save. Now, you don't counter the whole spell, you only counter the spell's effect against you. So if they drop a fireball, you can counter the effect against you, But that's interesting. Let me know. This either means, like, how would you run it? Would you let them keep stealing, keep using this feature as long as they don't actually steal the spell and get it, and it qualifies for them to have it prepared now and the other creature no longer has it prepared? Or would you say, once you successfully use this feature to block any spell, right, and counter the effect of it, does that qualify as steal? I think I would run it the former, where I would say, yeah, if you're countering these level 5 and higher spells that you don't qualify for, or you're countering cantrips because you don't qualify to steal those either, you can keep doing that all day long, as much as you want. And only when you actually get the spell prepared from them and they lose it, then that counts as steal. That's how I would run it. That makes us better, but not anywhere close to super powerful. It's just better in an interesting way. Yeah, so I do think that's an A-level feature, and that's I call it rated an A-level feature before I realized that it said once you steal versus once you counter. So maybe it's an A+ level feature now. I don't know. I don't know if that edges it into A+. All right, level 19 is when you get your 4th level spell slots. Right, there we go. Boom. We get a 4th level spell slot. We get now 12 spells prepared. At level 20, we're going to have 13 spells prepared. And there are a lot of interesting spells. None of these are without verbal components, though, so you don't get any 4th levels. There are no 4th level wizard spells that don't have a verbal component. They didn't show up in that filter. So you don't get anything that's going to not break your stealth, but there are still a lot of good spells on the 4th level wizard list. You would want to choose something that's going to be long lasting and impactful because you have a single 4th level spell slot. You never get another one. And that's once per long rest. So choose something that's like going to be versatile. Choose the spells prepared. They're going to be like useful in a lot of situations. They're going to be high impact, probably with a duration. Like you wouldn't choose. I don't know if I'd choose Vitriolic Sphere, right? Maybe, because if you cast it while hidden, everything's gonna have disadvantage against that. That thing does a lot more damage than Fireball. Maybe I'd choose Vitriolic Sphere if you don't have a lot of blaster capability in the party. But you're level 19 and casting Vitriolic Sphere. That thing's going to do like 50 damage if they fail to save. Level 19, that's not a lot. I don't know. Pick your favorites. There's a lot of good options. There's a lot of good things there. There's anyway. Those are the ratings I give of all the spells you might get at 4th level from the wizard spell list. A lot of flexibility. Once again, you cannot achieve all of those ratings because you don't have enough prepared spells nor spell slots to cast a spell in each of those categories. So you're going to have to pick what's going to make the most impact. The way I would approach it is, what do we not have in the party that we're lacking? Like if we have no controller in the party, I would probably pick up a control spell at every spell level 1, 2, 3, and 4. If we already have good controls in the party, I would probably only get one control spell, and I would probably make that Hypnotic Pattern because you can cast that while stealth and it won't break it. And they have disadvantage against Hypnotic Pattern. So that's still a good thing to do at even higher tiers. If they have very poor support, like there's not a support person in the party, I might get some support spells. I don't know if I'd take, as far as, because enhanceability is also a support spell. I might just get enhanceability as an arcane trickster and call it good there, because that's something you can use on yourself to make you awesome at, even better at scouting, even better in the face roll, even better in the knowledge roll, and you can cast it on somebody else to support them, right? The whole party needs to stealth in somewhere. Well, you're probably going to succeed, but that paladin wearing plate armor probably won't. So you cast enhanceability on him for dexterity. Now he has advantage on his stealth check. Is that going to be enough to counter everything else he's bad at? Because he probably has a low dexterity score and heavy plate. So the heavy plate's going to cause disadvantage. Your enhanceability is going to cause advantage. Those are going to cancel out. He probably still needs the druid to throw down like Pass Without Trace. But yeah, that's a pretty good support spell. So that's how I would approach it. I would pick my spells to augment whatever or fill in the gaps for whatever the party's missing. And I would definitely probably get Haste and Cacophonic Shield for myself. I would get Enhanceability, Shield, False Life, Long Strider. Did I say Cacophonic Shield? Cacophonic Shield. I don't know if I'd get Counterspell. Maybe Counterspell. And then the rest, just pick your favorites. There's a lot of good options here. All right, and now what I have on the screen is kind of aggregating everything together, because I had a lot of people asking for this, because when I rate features of your subclass, I'm rating that feature on its own. If I were to take every feature in the game and just kind of rate that thing against all of those features, that would be the rating I would give this feature completely out of context, or highly out of context because I still keep it in context with how it works with your base class. But as a base class for Arcane Trickster, you can see now I've highlighted that bottom row, which is how I aggregate the entire subclass. So as an entire subclass, relative to every other rogue subclass, this one is a solid A. I think this is an A plus. It is more flexible than all the other subclasses. You have more versatility than all the other subclasses because you have that spell versatility. Your survivability is probably better because of the shield spell, absorb elements, false life, kinetic jaunt, haste. All of those are things that are contributing to your survivability as well. You can get arcane vigor. You can get wither bloom to heal people. That's how I actually give them a D in at level 7 is because you can get wither bloom, which is a wizard spell, and heal. Now it's adding very little healing, so I give it a D as a heal spell, but it's still a heal spell. And they have a lot of A potential here with all of those, like I talked about. The combination of borrowed knowledge triggering reliable talent, plus enhance ability to give yourself just advantage on skill checks for an hour without the chance of like aggroing a creature in a social encounter because you're casting a spell in front of them, right? If you cast Charm Person on them, you might aggro them. If you walk out of the room and cast enhance ability on yourself and walk back in, you're not going to aggro them. This is a super solid subclass. And how does that now aggregate with your base class? Well, this is a little bit strange, right? And that's because the scale of how I rank a base class or how I rank things when you aggregate them together changes, right? If I were to say, and I'm just going to make up some numbers, if I were to just, when I rate a base class, I would say I'm rating it on a scale, and now it's the numeric ratings are still D to A and then S, but the scale would be like 0 to 50, right? And if you were 46 to 50, I would give you an A. But now when we're talking about aggregating your base class plus your subclass, the scale, you might still get an A, but now the scale is 0 to 75, right? And if you were at 68 or higher, that would be an A ranked base class aggregated with your subclass. And that's what that third table at the bottom there is. It's aggregating rogue base class plus your arcane trickster and aggregating those ratings together. So everything that didn't change is still grayed out, and I didn't change it, even though you get a lot of features to help you be a better, that could help you be a better scout, a better the face roll, better as a skirmisher, better the ranged roll. I don't think any of those things rank you up to an S. They help you keep you at an A ranked in all of those roles, right? Or in the case of scout and face, S tier, because I already rank the rogue base class as an S tier in scout and face because of reliable talent, because you can just never fail because of reliable talent. And these things, while make you even better at it, are not going to rank you up because there's no way to go above S. That's the top rank. All right, but where are you actually making some changes depending on the spells you choose? You could rank up to a C level blaster because you just don't have, because you can get Fireball, you can get Vitriolic Sphere, but you do not have the spell slots to be doing that a lot, right? You can't even come close to doing that in every round of combat. Even at max level, you're talking 3 third level spell slots, 1 fourth level spell slot, and those are your best blaster spells. And your first level spell slots, yes, there are some blaster spells there. They are very weak compared to like Fireball. And remember, you're level 19 or 20. If you're using Burning Hands and Rhymes Binding Ice and thinking you're going to, blast creatures and be a significant blaster with those spells at level 19 and 20, you're dreaming. Okay, so you can be a C level blaster though. You can be a B level controller because they have some pretty good control options, and just in choosing to impose disadvantage by hiding and then casting your spell to cause automatic disadvantage is a good control effect. You can do that in an area, so I'm going to give you B. You just don't have the spell slots to really keep up with that in controlling a lot of creatures every round of combat for the entire day. So you still get a B, but that's because lack of spell slots, not for lack of other things. And then a C for support, because Rogue base class, I give a D as support. They do not have a lot of support options, and this actually has some support options if you choose certain spells, because there are a number of support spells on the wizard spell list. That's all I got for this one. So thanks for watching. Remember to be cool when you play D&D, because this is a game, and literally the point of games is to have fun. And these people are your friends, or they could become your friends. So be cool. All right. And remember, if you don't have enough D&D in your life, check out the description. Hit me up, find me on Discord. You can play with me on Start Playing Games, whatever you like. Catch you next time.